So I was from the get-go when COVID first started. I'm like, yeah, something's not right here.
You'll want to hear my friend's story.
So everybody, this is Diane Miller. She is my friend from church. We met probably 3 years ago or so. How long have you been coming to Fresh Start?
It'll be 4 years in October.
4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've known her for quite a while, and I, in asking God about who I should interview for Lion Revival, Diane was the first one that came to my mind. And she has quite the story surrounding COVID, big pharma, and all things natural. So I would love to hear your story today, Diane. So we'll start kind of with that stuff, and then we'll go into how you came to know Jesus later. Because you were already, during COVID, you didn't know Jesus, correct? Like
That
at
is
the beginning.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. When COVID started, I was working as a pharmacy technician in on-site pharmacies, and they, of course, were, having us mask up and having us, it was required that we get the shot or get tested twice weekly. And I chose to, at that time, ride it out as long as I could as far as not getting the shot. And then in September of 2021, I chose to leave that job because it was going to be mandated come the next month, and I was not going to do that. I, first off, don't really have my kids or myself get any of the vaccinations anymore that the CDC recommends, because the majority of them are not needed. And they cause issues in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was, from the get-go, when COVID first started, I'm like, yeah, something's not right here. And so we ultimately made a decision for me to leave work. And so in September of 21, I left my job of 15 years and decided to leave it in God's hand, even though I didn't know God at that time, really leave it in God's hand and walk out of there with faith, knowing that He had us. Stayed home. At that point, my kids were still in school, so kept them in school, but was pulling them from school and looking into homeschooling. And from a mutual friend that goes to our church, mutual friend of a friend of ours that goes to church, connected me with, she had posted about getting into the homeschooling, their co-op, and if we wanted information, and she connected me with that person, and that person is the one who I spoke to, and she is actually the one who got us going to Fresh Start Church. We had been wanting to find somebody or find a church to go to, but most of our friends go to CCV or other churches, and we didn't want that. I just felt like that's not what I want. That's not right. And so ultimately, we started going, and the kids and I started going in October of 21 and have been there since.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's been pretty interesting, and I'm grateful, actually. And God knew where we needed to be. God really knew where we needed to be, because I don't think, even though I was not forewarned how the church is, I love our church. Love our church. I think, honestly, if I had been forewarned, I might have been a little standoffish and not gone. But God knew where we needed to be. And every single service, from the time I've started going to now, has had a pull on me of going more to God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what was it about CCV or the other churches that were like, because at the time you hadn't given your life to Jesus at that point. You were just kind of looking to get closer to God, it sounds like.
Yeah, I hadn't even, I just wanted us to start going to church and, having more of that structure and foundation, I should say, within our family, because my husband never had it growing up. I never had it growing up. And I was actually raised Jewish. But I knew that there was always a God. And a lot of it, I think, was in March of 21. I kept hearing, there's more. Kept hearing, there's more, there's more. And I know now that it was, you know, ultimately God talking to me and telling me there's more. And every, you know, time I think that I'm like struggling with things that I'm going through and whatnot, and I'm just like, I just want to quit. We have a service that pulls me right back at that there's more, and just remember, don't give up. And so it's just been, it's been amazing, honestly, that God, the way God works. You know, I mean, there's still a lot of things that I need to work on, but definitely don't ever want to not have him in our life anymore.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
So the church we go to is Holy Spirit filled.
Definitely.
Worship is, praise is high. There's dancing, there's shouting, the singing, the jumping, and worship is deep.
Worship is very deep, and it's no less than 45 minutes, sometimes an hour of worship alone before service even starts. And
there's altar calls. They call people up to the front and pray for people, and many people have encounters.
Yeah, it's a very powerful place to be. And you walk in there and you can tell that it is just Holy Spirit filled. I've brought friends with me that do go to other churches, and they've mentioned that, wow, you can just feel his presence when you are in this place. So definitely glad that we are there. Like I said, God knew where we needed to be.
Our steps are ordered of the Lord.
Yeah.
And that's what it says in Proverbs, and that's what he did for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you know then? Because you were raised Jewish. So how did you know then that Jesus really is the Messiah?
I didn't, honestly. And it's actually kind of funny because since being in church, I've actually learned more about my religion that I was brought up in than I did growing up. So it's actually kind of funny that, you know, that it's kind of gone that way. Which like, but you know, like, because there is so much more to just that, you know, I mean, Jesus was a Jew. I mean, you know, but ultimately he was God's son, God in the flesh, really. And like I said, I've learned so much more about my religion that I was raised in. And mom didn't really raise us in much of anything. And mom was a single mom with 2 kids, and my grandparents were more of the raising of the religion than my mom really was.
So now let's go back to like when you must have like agreed with the pharmacy and doing all the medications and stuff when you started, like, because you were a pharmacy tech, right?
I was a pharmacy technician for 15 years. When I went into it, reason I went into it was because I had just recently gotten divorced. I was a single mom with 2 kids, and figured something simple that was going to not take me long to do for school, so that I could provide for my family.
Yeah.
And figured pharmacy technician was the best way to go. Even at that point though too, I was not really big in using medications for things. At that point, however, though, with my 2 older kids, they had all had their vaccinations. What I know now, I would have never ever done any of it. But I was really more of, let's find natural ways to do things. Let's not, you know, let's not use medication if we don't have to. And I mean, I know like Western medicine, there's a time and a place for it. But your everyday things can be changed. And by changing your diet, changing things you're doing, having a good relationship with God, really, because if you don't have that, you're going to not go to him to help you work through things that you may be having a hard time with. And ultimately, you know, you've got to get to the root cause of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though I was a pharmacy tech for 15 years, I still chose to go the natural route on pretty much most anything.
Mm-hmm.
Other than, like I said, there's things that, yes, Western medicine does come in play for, you know, broken arm, you know, a major surgery of some sort that has to be done. But other than that, 9 times out of 10, if you were just to maybe change some of the foods that you're eating, or change the lifestyle that you're living, or getting more sleep, you know, there's a lot of different things that could be done
Mm-hmm.
other than just going for that pill.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That, you know, that's one of the ways I looked at it too, is it's just, you know, there's natural ways.
Yeah. So I don't vaccinate my children either. I could go into my story why, but I don't want to do that right now. But we did start Paul a little bit early on. But how did you come to find out that vaccines were causing harm rather than helping?
It was a while, because my older 2 are much older than my younger 2, and like I said, they had all of theirs, and my younger 2 were 5 and 2 when I stopped them getting them. So it was a while, but I like just the more and more things that I kept researching, probably basically started when I started researching, looking into cloth diapers for my youngest, because we had so many issues with my 3 older ones that every single one of them had some type of issue to a reaction to some brand of diaper.
Yeah.
So when I started going down that rabbit hole, per se, it led me down another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. And I could keep going, because there's multiple rabbit holes I have been down.
Because right now I know even soaps, like when you come to church, you bring your own soap. You won't even use the soap that's there.
I do, because there's so many chemicals and stuff within our products. Chemicals, dyes that are no good. Our skin is our biggest take-in of chemicals, and it is our biggest cover of our body. And if that, you know, you're lathering yourself up with chemicals, that's literally just going into your bloodstream. And I just, you know, I had to stop. A lot of it too was because I was having a lot of autoimmune issues. And when I was a pharmacy tech, part of the reason I started bringing my own soaps too was because I was noticing the soaps that we wash our hands with at work was causing issues. And that's a lot of why I started making my own soaps and keeping a container. I had a container at work, and I had a container in my purse, and we just, you know, I would use those because I was noticing that when I was using the soap at work with as often as we washed our hands, I literally could not keep my hands moisturized, and they were cutting and splitting. And once I stopped doing that, like, it's something in the soap. Chemicals, dyes, whatever it was something in the soap. And of course, with it being probably at that point, it was antibacterial soap, which is not good for you to be using on a constant basis. Just like hand sanitizers and stuff like that are not good to be used on a constant basis. And depending on which ones you're using, they're not good to use at all, whether it's constant basis or not. Because
Can you explain why?
when we constantly use an antibacterial, you're taking all of the good bacteria off. We need that good bacteria for our bodies to flourish. And when you're constantly washing in that antibacterial, you're taking off everything. You're taking off the good bacteria, you're taking off the bad bacteria. It doesn't matter, because it doesn't differentiate between. You're taking off everything. So then you are actually, in a way, depleting your immune system for your immune system to do what your immune system was built to do in the first place. And so that's, you know, I started doing that, and I just, since then, I carry it with me now, because there's, you know, most places don't keep clean soaps.
Mm-hmm.
And what they think is clean is definitely not clean.
Yeah.
And so that's just, and like I was saying, I just one rabbit hole to another, and I just found out more and more of like my third child, he has delays in some things, and that was one of the things that also kind of had me going down the rabbit holes of where is this coming from. I did have a difficult labor with him, so I wondered if some of it had come from that. He also had his tubes, tonsils, and adenoids taken out when he was just barely 3. Had I known now that that actually is not something that they recommend in the more natural realm of not having done, because we actually need those to help our bodies support our immune system properly. Would have never had it done, but he was having problems with snoring. I mean, we could literally hear him from one room of the house to the other end of the house, that he was that loud. But I was also finding out, like, did any of this come from the shots that he had received? And he was having ear infections and more and more I was doing research that sure enough, yeah, it could have definitely come from those. But I still wasn't completely awake at that point, because then my youngest, like I said, she still got hers all the way up till she was 2, but had multiple ear infections from the time she was about 6 months to like a year and a half, almost 2. And she got all of her vaccinations up until that point. I stopped her before I did not get her 2-year-old ones. She has a speech delay. She did not talk until she was almost 3 years old. We used to joke around that it was her own little language, that, Camden was the only one who could understand her. But till then, I mean, she was just, and so I did more and more, like, where did this come from? And just going and researching and, finding out that this definitely could have come from the shots that she's had so far. And so that's when I decided, you know what, we're done. I'm not doing the vaccinations anymore. So they've not had any since that point. And like I said, if I had known then what I know now, I would have never done any of my 4 children. Any. And I highly will advocate on, if you are pregnant, I am going to talk to you in the best way I can possibly talk to you about, do not do it. I know so many people whose child has autism and Asperger's, and they say, well, this is the way they're made. No, because also if that child was fine up until those shots were given, then it is definitely coming from those shots.
Yes. And that is my story, because when I was in college, before I had kids or was even married, I had a friend that told me her brother was completely fine until he got his MMR shot when he was like 2.
That's the biggest
and
one
she
that
said,
comes into play.
So either delay that one or don't give it to them. And so I already knew, okay, I believe a parent more than I believe the government saying it's not true.
Right.
I believe what a parent says. They're fine until they get the shot. There's something wrong.
Right.
So when my first one was born, the first thing they ask is, like, do you want to give him the hepatitis B shot? And I looked at their little sheet they gave me, and I'm like, well, I don't want him to have that. So I was like, well, okay, we'll give him this one. Well, had I known then what I know now, hepatitis B is a sexually transmitted disease. There's no way he's going to have it unless I had it.
Right.
And I did not have it. So there was absolutely zero reason for him to have that shot. And they do that for every newborn.
Yep.
So it's ridiculous.
Yep. Same with the eye ointment.